morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in at. Welcome to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. Your host, Terrell Simmons. And I got a special guest in the building. This is my sister. And if you guys caught the Instagram live, wait, when did we do this? 2-3 weeks ago? When was it, Nancy?
Yeah, like 2 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks before last. So yeah, oh my God, 3 weeks.
Yeah, you know that she's always sipping and having some conversations. Although we got ice water today because you got to rehydrate when you working with Nancy and sipping in the evenings. Nancy, how are you doing? And how's AT&T treating you these days?
Oh my goodness, AT&T has been trying. They've been trying, but I may or may not sever my relationship with AT&T. I just recently moved out to the Alabama because that's how I have to call it. It's the Alabama, and it's been pretty good to me so far. But this Wi-Fi, I just cannot understand how somebody will offer service with Wi-Fi that is just glitchy. Like that does not make any sense.
Right.
I literally was like, y'all, it's not working for my social media life. I actually told these guys that, and they were like, "Mom, I don't understand what you're saying to me." But they did like a test or whatever, and I think it's been a little bit better. So, but we're just gonna monitor that.
As your Nigerian brother and completely talk about under lack of understanding. I'm still not understanding how an African is in Alabama out of all places.
in the Alabama. So like, okay, so true talk, funny story. I guess it's like full circle, right?
Okay.
So I'm imported, and I say this. So I got that term from one of my friends, Rama. She is actually one of the hosts on Black Dot Wall Street. She does a segment on Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m. Humble plug. But she would have this shirt that imported. And so we were talking about it one day, and I'm like, yo, I'm imported. Because like, and an imported person, right, is someone that like your parents uproot you. You don't have a choice to come to America or to wherever you're going. Yeah. And they literally import you to a whole nother country and say, figure it out. Okay. But the first place that we landed, airport wise, we flew into Atlanta. And then drove out to Auburn because my dad had a fellowship or, some sort of scholarship, whatever, at Auburn University. So the fact that I'm back in Auburn now, like, geez, I was 8 months old at that point. We went back and then came back and have moved around since then. But at 38, so 36, no, not 36, 38, 37 point something years later, the fact that I'm back right where we started in the States has just been like really mind blowing to the family. And apparently not, although Alabama has changed from a cultural perspective, not too much has changed as far as, people in leadership and things like that. So that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But it's just crazy that I'm actually back here.
Yeah, right where you started from. So
where I started.
Yeah, so and we might have to get into that conversation at a whole later date. But glad to have you back. Let's rewind real quick because me and you would probably just go down this rabbit hole and start a conversation. For the people who do not know who Nancy is, I always got the profound question where I ask everybody, tell the people who is Nancy. And I know that's a deep question, but you could go as far and as wide as you want to go with that question.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you recognize that that's a deep question because a lot of times people say, "Who are you?" And it's just you should be defined by what you do, right? What you do and the role that you play generally. And so, me, who is Nancy Ngwa? I am all the things. I'm just all the things. First of all, I'm a dynamic woman. I am a child of God. I'm not super religious, but I have a very spiritual sense to myself just based on a lot of things that I've gone through. And really the person I've always called on has been God, and he's always showed up for me. And so, that's the crown that I wear. I'm a Black woman. I'm an African woman first. I'm a Black woman second. Um, and I'm a nurturer, and that includes me being a mother and all the other things that come with that. And I am a transformational leader in the workplace and outside of the workplace. So
I
all the
love
things, all the
I
things.
love all of that. I love all of that. And tell the people what you have, because you not only have you built this amazing thing of sips and conversations, but you're in the gambit of a lot of different things. So tell them a little bit about the things you have created in the spaces that you in and you creating.
Yeah. So, okay. So kind of take a step back. We'll go back to, it was a cold, cold night. No, I'm just kidding. 2000. So back my entire life, I wanted to be an attorney.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to be an attorney for a very specific reason. And that specific reason was I wanted to wake up every day, be fabulous, wear a suit,
Mm,
and tell people what the heck to do. And so that was, but after a while going to college, I went to be an attorney. I wanted to go to Pepperdine University.
uh-huh.
My parents were paying for my sister's first semester at Georgia State when I was a senior in high school.
Mhm.
And so they were like, who is giving you money for your books? Because we do not have any dollars. We do not have the dollars. You must find scholarship. Okay. And
Yes.
I'm like, oh, good Lord. So I ended up getting a full academic scholarship to any school I wanted to go to, public
Mhm,
school in Texas. Went to
mhm.
Texas A&M in Corpus Christi because it was as close to the beach as I could get and as far away from home as I could get at the same time. Those two things literally define.
What is it about Africans who want to go far away from the house as
I beg,
possible? Please,
as far
I,
as I
I,
kind of.
I do not. It will save money. No, I need to go as far away as possible. Please.
Please, I beg, remove myself. And you know what's crazy is that my dad, and I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole just yet, but my dad and I were actually having a very similar conversation just about the mental health of African children
Mhm.
and at the rate in which African children are starting to commit suicide in the and within the
Mm,
community, it's just unheard of. And so that actually it's got to have something to do, right, in parallel with the fact that we're like, okay, please get me away from mom and dad.
mhm,
We love our parents. Like, I love my mom, I love my father. But to be able to go out and have an identity of your own, to be honest, like our parents did the exact same thing. They
mhm,
went to a whole nother nation, right, in order to find themselves and to find financial freedom. And so that's something that's actually
mhm.
embedded in us. But yeah, I decided to go to Texas A&M for business management. And in my last year, after starting to study for LSAT, I decided not to do that. And so I moved out to Atlanta, and my sister helped me get a job in restaurant managing.
Mhm.
So I was a restaurant manager for Waffle House, and I
Mhm.
still have scars. I still have scars, literally in so many different ways. But it was such a great Waffle House started as such a great foundation for me.
Mhm.
Working in management, you go through an entire training program, which is great. You get to learn how to run a business,
Yeah.
and then they actually insert you in a business, and you are responsible for running an entire unit, like
Wow.
staffing, the supply chain of the food that you're getting, right? Just every single thing, sales, marketing. And so I'd have to like walk the first mile once a week to go know who my neighbors are and
Uh-huh.
learned how to be a good leader, learned, what cleanliness was in an organization. So I really developed a lot of business skills from there.
Wow. I
Uh,
didn't know Waffle House had
yeah,
such a great program. Now, just out of
when I
curiosity,
say bomb,
was that just out of
bomb.
curiosity, was that your first job?
That was my first job.
Wow. So yeah,
That was my first job.
you got a great training.
Yeah, yeah. And that's how I entered. I mean, I went to school for business management and literally just got thrown into it, right? And was able to really understand how to run a business. Didn't really understand what I was doing, but I guess I did really good. And
Mhm.
in 5 months of running my first unit, I got promoted to district manager. And they moved me further up north, Georgia, which was, I'm saying like it's an hour and a half from the
Mhm.
city because I started from the city. got 2 units up in Alpharetta Cumming area, and this was back in 2000, like maybe 2007. As a young, I'm 22 years old, black female district manager in Cumming and Alpharetta, Georgia, which is they're very very white areas.
Mm,
um, and so I had, once I got my third unit, I really started having some staffing issues, and people just did not want to come show up to work for me. And I was a young leader, and I'm sure I wasn't perfect, right? Like you have to learn along the way. But
mhm,
there was a night where I worked, like literally I worked for 36 hours because people they would not come to work.
mm,
Um, my division manager that hired me into Waffle House, he found out about it, and as soon as he had a spot open, he brought me back home. And so
mm,
I went back to the city, and had 3 stores. Start off with 2, they gave me a third. And so
mm,
by the age of 24, like if I would have finished out that last year, it was an easy six figure year for me. So
mm,
like just making a lot of money really really young, having a lot of power, from an organizational perspective, right? Leading leaders, like I was a leader of leaders, because
mhm,
as a district you have managers working under you.
mhm,
And so I just learned just so much, and how to motivate people and how to get people really bought into your systems. But
mhm,
definitely was not the place for me. Ended up kind of wandering for a little while after I left, and fell into supply chain
mhm.
at Hitachi Power Tools, which is now Metabo.
Okay.
And yeah, go green. And my manager, when I first got hired on full time, so I would start as a temp. So
Uh-huh.
I went from having a 6 figure earning potential year to
Yeah.
making $10 an hour 1 year later.
Woo. That's a humbling experience.
Humble. Do you understand? Because I just thought all the jobs were like that. It was my first job out of school. I'm gonna get another job like this. It's
Right.
fine. And but what it taught me was you're never too good to learn from the ground up.
Mhm,
And so I did. I learned from the ground up. I started entering POs. Then sales managers started reaching out to me a whole lot to get, because they saw that I was processing their orders really well. I was able to enter into a fastener role, and it was just all uphill from there. Got my MBA, and my manager knew I was going to leave, and so when it was time for me to go, it was definitely bittersweet, but I was able to get into manufacturing. And manufacturing
mhm,
is so different from distribution, and so went into more of a procurement, type role within the manufacturing realm in plastics, and did that for, I'd say, for several years. And then now I serve as a supply chain leader for in a healthcare organization, sitting on as part of the senior leadership team. So
Yes.
very long journey,
But it was a
but
beautiful journey. It's a beautiful
yes,
journey, and I
yes,
love that you really should share the milestones along the way, because I think each was a stepping stone to the next thing. And I think sometimes, young folks don't realize that. The one thing I used to say to folks when I used to speak to, especially college students who are coming out with a degree but no experience, and they expect to get
yeah,
that 6 figure job right away. It
yeah,
don't
right
happen
away,
like that. It don't happen like that. That's
right,
not that's
right,
not the norm. You might see a couple people do it, but that's not the norm, right? And so
right,
they get all
right.
frustrated at the process. And I'm like, listen, you gotta you got to fall in love with this process, because it's going to help you grow into that 6 figure earner that you want to be. Because you don't
No,
have
hands
anything to
down.
go. Yeah, you don't have nothing to go right now. Like, well, I'm gonna pay you 6 figures just because you got a degree.
You have a degree, you study your book, so, and you think that some corporation is going to entrust you. Like I had a lead, one of my managers. I don't call my managers bosses. That's one thing that I don't do. They're my manager. Okay,
Right.
you're not the boss to me, is what I say. You're my manager. You're my leader. You are not the boss to me. And so, but I had my leader that I had at one plastics company. He actually was saying for every, how does he look at it? Was it like for every $20,000 you expect a certain return.
Yeah.
So the more you make, when you're making 6 figures, No, the company needs to be saving $1 million off of you. True time.
Woo.
So if you don't have that level of value to ingest into that organization, then no, you're not going to get that six-figure job. Or if you get it, you're going to quickly lose it because you are such a cost. $100,000 actually costs the company about what, 150, $160,000 fully loaded. When you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about bonuses and all that stuff, right? And so you got to be able to bring value.
Yeah. So yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. When they think about that in its totality, like how
Yeah.
businesses run and thrive and operate. Now, I know we was joking earlier, and I was like, I'm gonna ask you some questions that I got here, and you chose to go with New Year, New You theme. So, it was February. I know some people got their New Year's resolutions game thing going on, and I want to know: are your typical resolutions about health and productivity, or is it something else?
So here's what's funny. Like, I don't have New Year's resolutions. Which is why I chose this topic
Okay.
because no, fuck a new me. Like I hear that I get the concept and I totally understand it. But like you should always be striving to be a better version of yourself, right? And
Ooh.
so period. So when we're talking about, do I have resolutions? I don't have resolutions. However, I do have like fiscal planning.
Hmm. Okay. I like
And
that.
what is my end goal for the year? Like where do I want to be at for the year? So last year I said I'm buying a house, period. I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but
Hmm.
I'm getting a house because I'm tired of paying this rent. I was tired of paying that Atlanta rent.
Hmm.
I couldn't tell you how much my rent was, but it was absolutely ridiculous.
And it's
Okay, I
still
was
going up.
paying.
It's going up like crazy. I'm like, I don't know how high they want to go on this rent.
Well, they're gonna go as high as the market allows them to go,
Mm,
right? They've got because like it's like as long as it's cheaper to rent than it is to own a home in the area, a lot of people are gonna choose to rent. And I actually fell for that for just the longest time. And but at the end of but when last year started, I said, I'm buying a house. I'm not paying rent anymore. I'm done. And literally 12/31/2022 was my move-in date into my first home. And so when we talk about, new year, new me, I usually start to have that mental transition about fall time as to, okay, what does next year look like? To be honest, right now, I'm already mentally thinking about 2024. What is 2024 going to look like for me? So when the year turns, before the year turns, I think is really the best time to start planning for your next year, right? A lot of times I think we wait until the year starts or it's New Year's Eve, let's get our resolutions together,
yeah.
whatever, whatever. But instead of really looking at it like if you were a business, like you are an organization, right? Terrell Simmons is an organization. And if you were as an organization, are you going to start planning your next year goals on
Hmm.
December 31st? You're not,
Hmm.
or on when the year hits, you're not. You do fiscal planning in October,
Hmm.
right? And so for me, like New Year, New Me really starts at least Q4 of the previous year.
Yeah. So now I'm curious, in that transition, because I'm thinking all my friends who were trying to buy and get into the market, and I'm thinking about the mortgage I pay now. I was having a conversation with a friend how my my mortgage is cheaper than some people's rent, and especially here in
Damn.
California.
Tucson.
And some of my friends who are just now who planned to get into the market this year, or last year, I'm sorry. 2022 really messed up their plans and how the
Yeah.
housing was going. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, did the way 2022 went totally mess up last year's resolutions for you?
No.
She's
No.
like, I I am as an African, we are hustlers.
We are hustlers.
We pivots, or we don't. It don't mess up the plan. We just learn how to pivot.
How can you pivot? How do you transition? How do you adapt? Adaptation is literally one of the silent killers. The lack of the ability to pivot, right, and adapt to the current environment. When people talk about politics, Democrat, Republican, whatever, I'm like, it's just the worst of the evils. You have to use the laws in order to allow you to do what's best for you and your community, right, as needed. So it doesn't really matter the person who's in office be mattering, but like it doesn't matter Republican or Democrat. I'm one of those agnostic people. So when you talk about, hey, when the year is a bad fiscal year, one, recession is man-made. First of all, okay, it's man-made. Two, it's all about outlook. What is your perception of the thing? So when it comes to home ownership, one of the big things was, okay, the cost of homes kept going up, right? But then it got to a sweet spot where it kind of plateaued, but then it's still creeping. So you have to decide, am I going to enter the market, or am I going to keep watching property values continue to go up, and then I'll never become a homeowner? You got to make that decision and just stick to it. And I decided, no, I'm getting in because it's going to continue to get worse. Of course, I did a lot of research. I have friends that are in the real estate market. My sorority sister, Kathleen Booker, okay, she's a realtor in Houston, Texas. Let me my humble plugs. In Houston, Texas, and she's actually in a webinar on the 22nd for people with bad credit that want to get into home ownership. But you have to decide, like, do I just jump into this thing, or do I continue to just watch the boat just sail and hope and pray that at some point I can catch up to it, or it can fall back and I can get into it, right? And so I decided I'm getting into this thing full on. And one of my deciding factors when I heard someone say, you date the mortgage, you marry the house. And so I strategically buy where I buy. I'm in Auburn, Alabama, because there's Auburn University that's here. So whether or not I live in Auburn going forward, this is it's a rental property. You know, it's a townhome. It's got enough rooms. It's in a great neighborhood. We've got, accommodations on site. And so it's a great place to just use as a rental property if I needed to use as a rental property. So that's really how I looked at it. And I can always refi. Like, okay, even if I lose, $6,000, right, from finance fees, when I refi, I'm good. And then you have the tax benefit on top of that. And so, no, I'm winning.
There you go. All right. See, and you won't have to send me the link now, because they're gonna be harassing me for this course that you just dropped.
Absolutely, I'm gonna send you the link. I'm gonna send you the link.
Especially all my Africans, I'm like, my brother, please, where's this course that Nancy spoke of? I need this course. So
yes, and it's and my sorority sister, she's actually a fellow Nigerianista. Okay, so
well, tell her she needs to be coming on to this podcast.
Yes, I'm actually gonna hook her up. Now that she said that, I will. I'll give her. I'll shoot her a link, and she'll definitely come on. That is my word. I'll make sure she gets on. She can get a little, stage shot, but we'll work on it. She'll come on.
We'll work on that.
Great information. She got great information. I think that's definitely going to benefit our community for sure.
Nice. Love it. Now, are there any new hobbies that you want to start in the new year?
I wouldn't say start. For me, it's more, I've been really working through how to accomplish the things that I've already set out to accomplish, right? So I've got a culinary brand called Nita's Cuisine, and Nita's Cuisine is like a passion project. It's a passion project that I did not want.
Why did you not want it? It seems like it's doing so well. I've been following it on Instagram. I was like, okay, I see her.
So it started off being one of my cousins had I'm gonna say for several months, right? She was like, hey, now that you are a real African woman, because I learned how to cook, to start cooking traditional dishes a couple years back.
You got a real African woman, so you learn how to cook traditional dishes.
Do you know how to cook? You know how to cook chop? At least you know how to cook chop. You are not African woman. You know the African woman, okay? Like, forget the fact that I was born there. I'm raised in an African household. I eat my fufu, okay? Like, I eat my okra soup. No, she said, now that you're an African woman, you do know how to cook okra soup. Let's start a catering company. And I'm very much so by the books, and okay, I don't see things for what they are today. For me, it's always long term. And so it took me a while to kind of understand what the vision of that would look like and how that would benefit. How can I benefit the community as a whole by doing something like that? And so once I was able to get the vision of, oh my gosh, manufacturing, like it's what I'm in, right? Like I'm saying manufacturing, but it's culinary manufacturing, to be able to get things out on a scale, because you don't have a lot of African foods out there in the stores.
You don't. And I think this new wave and generation of Africans, we need that, like, because we ain't passing down generations of recipes like we used to. And I be missing. When I moved out here, I still haven't perfected red soup. Like, and then I don't know where I could get my food. Like, I had to go to 3 different stores to try to find semolina or pounded yam, right? In my area.
Yes. Oh, pounded yam is mine. That's my jam. I try not to eat it, like, because you pack on the stomach and the yash and all of that thing. But yeah, so. But yeah, I just think it's just so needed where you can go and you can get, or even like, and one of my taglines I love to use is African children love mac and cheese too. And so just even me being a blend of African and, having some American culture to what to the way I live, I'm like, hey, how can I bring this right to the rest of the world and for them to enjoy the foods that I grew up eating and that my son enjoys to eat. So went in with that mindset, and partnership didn't fully work out. And so I spent some time just trying to understand like where to go with that. And but when I came back with, okay, I want to educate people. And I want to launch, I had a barbecue sauce. That's the flagship product that I used to, yes, Sweets and Heats.
Sweets and Heats.
Sweets and Heats. Okay. Thunder fire.
That sounds like an African woman to me. Sweets and Heats.
Yes, Sweets and Heats. Exactly. Like, you got a little sweet, spicy, I didn't even think about it that way. Yes, Sweet and Heat. So, but it's not, it's child friendly. It's friendly people that don't really like a lot of hot, right? But you want to look, you can taste all the flavors, because barbecue sauce is missing seasoning. And I'm just like, this is just not acceptable. And so it's a bourbon-based barbecue sauce. And so we redid the entire product design late last year. We're able to launch right before Thanksgiving, I believe. And so from that point on, I mean, yeah, like the product has been like, it's crazy. You change the packaging and people are like, oh my gosh, I want that. And so now for me, it's more so when you talk about, goals for 2020, new goals. I don't have new goals. I have refinement goals. And I want to really be able to zone in and focus in. And how do I build this brand? How do I grow the brand? What is the real value that I want to provide to the people? And just continue to remember that, because as busy as I am, I sometimes forget the why. Why did I start doing this thing, right? And so my focus for 2023 is really definitely to just continue to remember the why in all areas. Additional hobbies, I guess, that I have. I work with a nonprofit called Ambassadors of Change.
Okay, all right. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so AOC it's a new one for me. So one of my homegirls and I slightly backtrack. I used to serve on the school board of my son's school when he was at charter school. And school was called North Metro Academy of Performing Arts. Love that school to pieces. Dr. Johnson is the principal there, and When I tell you a person that is passionate about a school, about their children, like you will find none other than Dr. Johnson. He's a remarkable leader of that school. Super proud of that school, and was really, really proud to have served. But during my time there, I definitely saw that there was a need right within the Black community. How do we provide our children with the skills that they need in order to continue to succeed? And in every area, right? Emotionally, mentally, physically. We don't talk about physical health and well-being as much in our community as we really should, and definitely financially. As someone that has come from, a family that came to the U.S. and had to really climb with the rankings, and I had a moment where I was set back, and I went from literally sleeping on floors to owning a home. And that story is not for myself, right? It's so that I can allow people to learn off of my back and off of the pain that I've had to experience. And so my friend and I were like, okay, let's start. How do we take this to the schools? Because I've been speaking to schools on like career days and things of that sort, but no, this is a real passion for both of us. How do we do this? How do we scale? Along the journey, when I tell people, start doing the thing, because if it's for you, you will be led right onto the path. Doors will start to open that you just never thought would actually open up. And next thing I know, I'm getting a call, and a lady that my friend works with, it's actually the wife of my friend's manager at work, and he owns a business, and she's a CEO for the business. And but she was talking to her to the marketing director of this company, right, who's the manager's wife. And she was like, oh, we'll talk to my cousin because she's really big into nonprofits. She has a nonprofit, so she can maybe give you some tips and this, that, and third. So we had a meeting. I missed the meeting because the time zone was all jacked up.
Oh, no.
The time zones were all jacked up. I ended up missing the meeting.
Yeah.
But the outcome of the meeting was that Bria Virgil, she is a co-executive director for Ambassadors of Change. She said, hey, you've been looking for, instead of starting a nonprofit, have you thought about joining one and just building your program through that? And so she was like, well, I mean, of course we would do that if we knew of one. And Bria is 28 years old, young leader. She's about to get awarded for something for being a nonprofit leader, but she just instantly gave us a shot. She said, why don't you come on board? We need programs for AOC. And so now we have taken our Elevated Outcomes program to Ambassadors of Change, and we're in the works of building that out. One of the areas actually that our founder, Patrice, actually lives in LA. And it's a crazy world because her daughter and my son went to the same school. So it was just and we didn't realize that. But yeah, so we're actually trying to find out how do we get into different school systems. Of course, one of them is Los Angeles, and me being Alabama, of course, and then Houston, Georgia, just really wherever needs the support, right? But we're in the middle of building this program out. We should be at a launchable point to be able to take this into schools this fall of 2023. So
nice.
That's the one thing I'm super, super passionate about right now.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
And I love that you shared your whole story from the floors to the most humbling point to the most prosperous point, because I think that's where the real connection is made. And my own personal experience that I shared on your show with this and the journey along the way, a lot of people tell me that's the thing that they connect with the most, that really help them get through or to reframe their mindset and see that things are possible. So thank you for that, and shout out to the nonprofit and these. I see y'all out here doing it. Now,
you have to give back.
Yeah, that's the most important. That's the win-win. Giving back is the win-win. Now, somebody like you, the only thing I can think of is like, man, how did she do it all? And the thing that comes up for me is productivity. So I'm like, what did you learn about your own productivity habits that you can apply to help you do better this year? Because with all the things you got going on, there's got to be a lesson somewhere in there on how to be uber productive.
Yeah. Delegate, delegate.
All right, break that down. Why is that so important to productivity?
Yeah, you're only one person. There's only 24 hours a day, and you gotta sleep. You gotta
Okay.
sleep because if you're not sleeping, it affects your health. I personally get
Mm,
migraines. I suffer from them. And so understanding what triggers, right, different ailments is something that's very important. So I believe in rest. I mean, I'll get all the rest I need, and I know that,
yeah.
but I got to get at least 6 hours a night. And, many, many years ago when I started understanding that I had a fire inside of me and I wanted it to come out, I would literally be awake for like 17 hours a day, easy,
Mm,
and sleep for like, what's that, 4? How many hours did I left? 5, not even 4 or 5 hours. Like, I sleep for 3 hours sometimes, wake up, shower, drive to work
yeah.
and keep rolling. That activity landed me on a couch for a month with a
Oh
migraine that would not
no.
go away.
Oh
It would
yeah.
not go away. And so, as time has gone on, I've realized that the more I can delegate, the more that I can actually get done. That's why a
Mm,
team is just so important. That's why leadership to me is so important because you don't know if you can't lead a team and leadership is about having the vision. So I feel like for when you talk about productivity, it's your job to have the vision and then to have the right people around you that you can delegate the things that their skill set more so allows them to do it at ease, right?
mm.
For instance, I have a VA and met her through Chatterbox, who I just love that company and what they stand for. But she is one, we're Sagittarius sisters, right? We understand she understands me.
Wait, you
She knows
Sagittarius
that,
too? I'm a
yeah.
Sagittarius.
When's your birthday? When's your
This
birthday?
December 7th. When's yours?
The 13th.
Okay, all right. My
Yes.
Sagittarius is. I know
Since you
that's
said,
why.
yes,
There's so many synergies we got going on.
there really, really are. There really, really are. And as a Sagittarius person, and you can potentially relate. I don't know how really Sag men are. I've heard horror stories though about Sagittarius men. I do not know. I cannot confirm or deny them because I'm a woman. So, but like, I actually think I can do everything. I literally, I know this sounds potentially really vain, but I actually am so multifaceted and talented. Like,
Right.
and nobody can tell me otherwise. And
Okay.
so, but because of that, you start saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do, and you start doing all these things, and you can get nothing done
Right.
because you're just doing all these things haphazardly, right? I had another word I was going to use, but I'm like, wait, I don't know if I can use that word for this clever. I was like, switch it up real fast. And so, but the importance of knowing how to delegate, and I'm thankful for the when people say like bump my job, I'm like, I'm so thankful for my job and I'm so thankful for the experience I've gained because if not of me working in a corporate environment and learning leadership skills, there's no way that I can understand that no, you can't do it all by yourself. You've got to pull on your team to the point where even my son, I've realized he's a fast typer. I mean, bruh is sick with it. He's 11 years old and he just be like, so guess what I have him doing? I have him starting to type out all my recipes so that because I have a goal of I want to have a cookbook by this time next year. And so he's out there with the recipe typing, and he actually is the one that uploads my podcast now. On
Nice.
YouTube, and I can take that and he does all of my descriptions for me. And so it's like, how do you use the strengths of the people around you, the ones that really believe in your vision and that really want you to succeed? How can you use their strengths in order to get you to that next level, right? And so that's what helps me be productive. I'll be delegating.
Love that. Now, when most people set their goals for the New Year's, they usually do it at the top of the year. I'm curious, do you set your goals at the beginning of each year?
Q4.
Q4.
Now, if I'm setting a goal at the beginning of the year, it's for 2020. It's for the next year. So
Gotcha.
2024, I do have goals already. I'd like to buy another property in 2024. And I already said, cookbook needs to come out by 2024.
Okay.
And I would love it for the end of the year, but we're being realistic and setting the target, and if we can push it up a little bit sooner, then that's what we're going to do. But yeah, I definitely said if it's a new year, it's for the next year. If it's for the current year, if I'm setting a goal for the next year and I'm in the year before, instead of the beginning of the year, it might be in Q4. Q4, I start actually planning for the next year easy.
Gotcha. So the other thing I'm curious to know now, like, do you think, if all these goals you've set and achieved and are achieving, both in your personal and professional life, do you think you need to focus more on work or your personal life in
Don't do
this
this to
year?
me. What does that mean? Can you please break it down? What do you mean, or personal
So,
life?
so like, because you stay so busy, like, which one needs more focus? If you had to think about like where you spend the majority of your time and productivity, what's the thing that you want to focus more in this year? Is it the work aspect or the personal?
All the things.
All the things. Oh, look at
I
that. That's a
focus
Sagittarius
on
answer. I can do
it is.
everything.
I can, but I focus on impact. So for
Okay.
me, it's where can I provide the most impact, and so that to be honest is ever evolving. And work. I have a dynamic team, and I do it for the team, right? Like if I was just like this individual contributor, it'd be so easy to be able to walk away. It'd be so easy to walk away. But when you have a team that you have actually seen and experienced them valuing you and needing your leadership or somebody's leadership, you can't walk away from that. There's just no way. I'm just doing too many things at work that are just so cool and so dynamic that I can't even say, no, I'm not going to focus. I was at work till 8:00 last night, doing some things, right? And so, but that's why, but I have a rule that I don't do work for work at home.
Yeah.
So I break up my spaces. So which is why I move closer to the office, because when I'm at work, I'm working.
Yeah.
When I leave, I'm not working. And people know that. I'm very clear. I set clear expectations, and I tell them that. Because when I'm at home, I'm doing the other work, right?
Yeah. And I like that because that's a good productivity hack, because it allows you to stay concentrated on a single thing for a nice duration of time, so that you have an increased heightened productivity, awareness, creativity, all that stuff around that thing. So I see what you're doing. I like it. All right. So I know some young lady is going to be inspired by a story, young man, and or somebody who's currently trying to figure out their New Year's, new you kind of resolution, and you gave so many nuggets. But the one that I want us to focus on in this portion is, when you take a look back at your career, and for somebody who's inspired by being in the industry, knowing that there's a Black woman who's successful in a leadership position in your industry, what would you say are some key steps that you took to get into your career?
Wow, that's a good one. Okay, so definitely, first of all, before I even answer that, I've been watching. What was I? I was watching something, and they were saying, like, there was a lady who was in pageantry, and they were like, "Why you always got all the answers?" And I'm sitting here like, I hope I'm not coming off as I'm like just spit up all these perfect answers. 'Cause I don't know why that just like hit my head, right? But like the answer, really to that is, as you're before, during, and after your career, you have to be humble. Be humble and understand that you don't know everything. You are not the smartest person in the room, You do not want to be the smartest person in the room, because how do you get better? How do you get better? And I think having that thought process has really what's allowed me to move forward at a different rate than, I wouldn't say than others, but at the rate that I have, right, been able to. It's because I'm always inquisitive. I'm always asking questions. I'm always on Google. I'm always talking to the person on my left and to the right. Literally, I talk to the janitor to ask them, what is your input on XYZ, right? Because knowing things from a holistic perspective is what allows you to really just grow in whatever career it is that you're in.
Yeah. Now, what about say if you were speaking to students who are like graduating high school or graduating college or in college, and they're listening to this and they're trying to do that career planning, and it's like, you know what, this is the industry I want to go into. What's some key advice you would give for them as far as next steps to take, whether it be a course, a book, whatever you think it is that they should do to help prep them to head towards that direction?
Yeah, so being in supply chain, being a female in supply chain, there's so many, there's so many of us, right? Especially that women of color, women, and then women of color that sit in a leadership position. And as far as coursework, it's really one, understanding understand business. Like that's the foundation of everything. Understanding business, understanding people. Those are the two things. So psychology is definitely a piece of coursework that I recommend for anybody to take, that is looking into getting into not just supply chain, but also leadership. Why? Because you're going to lead a team. You're going to lead, if you're in supply chain, that includes everything from procurement to warehousing, material planning, right? Production, you're having to deal with all these cross-functional teams, maintenance guys, service guys, facilities guys, vendors. And so you really have to understand the psychology behind how people make their decisions. Is really one thing that I would definitely recommend. Another class that I really enjoyed was organizational behavior. Again, it falls in that same, right, psychological, how do you understand psychology? But just with the trade itself, definitely, as much as it pained me, accounting is very important. But
the numbers.
Yeah.
Oh,
you got to know how to balance a checkbook. You got to know how to balance a checkbook. Because it like, again, just the basics. I did not do well in accounting in undergrad. I didn't. It was so bad that I asked I was like, yo, how do I pass your class? I was humble enough to say, how do I pass your class? This is not my major.
Look, you about to make every African parent sing for joy when you said accounting. See, I try to tell you.
You must understand numbers. Understand numbers. Okay. Engineering also is it's another great area if someone wants to study engineering as a whole. Why? Because you understand how things move. You're able to really be problem resolution focused instead of problem. So here's a problem, and how do I resolve that? Right. That's really big in when you're dealing with supply chain, especially with the economy of what it is today. It's ever changing. But yeah, and now schools actually offer supply chain management as a course, which is so dope to me. I've actually had a couple people that are looking for internships, and so yeah, and that's the other thing, experience. If you are whether you're in high school, definitely in undergrad, if you think that like you want to get into any industry, whether supply chain or anything else, right? Like nursing has you go through some sort of an internship, like you have to in order to graduate. I wish schools would force that behavior a little bit more, because then you can actually get out of school and have the experience in order to get to the thing. So internships, get into it.
Love it. Sure. Yeah, you can't. And I think internships is the one that a lot of our people fail to really take advantage of. And I think the reason why sometimes is because sometimes we're in that hustle if we need to get money or they
Yeah.
hate the concept of working for free.
Yeah.
But I look at it as you're not working for free. You're gaining valuable knowledge that's
Yes.
going
Yes.
to help accelerate you. You're gaining connections to valuable people who can
Yes.
help accelerate you. So if you can afford to take an internship, that even if it's non-paid, take it because you never know what you're going to get from that. So thank you for mentioning that. Um,
No, hands down.
Something that you mentioned that always sits with me when I look at and I have conversations with everybody about different industries that they're in is, that one, there's very few women in leadership positions in your industry, and there's few women of color. So from where you're sitting at, what does the future look like for us in your industry, for just people of color, women of color? What does the future look like?
Yeah. So I think the future is only as strong as the present,
Mm,
right? And so it's very important if you are a woman or man in leadership, of color or not of color, if to value diversity. Diversity is so important in the workplace and outside of it, but definitely in the workplace because it allows the organization to function in such a way where it's not just from one narrow scope, right? So if you're in a position to which you make hiring decisions or just decisions that can impact whatever site that you're working at, but definitely the hiring decision or the leadership and growth right decision, be intentional. Be
mhm,
really intentional about providing your entire team with the same opportunities. And when I say so, it doesn't matter what race people are, right? But be intentional of ensuring that everyone has the same opportunity.
mhm,
And one of the things that I practice is visibility. I give every single person on every what I call leader, any leader on my team, the visibility that they will need in order to kind of get to that next step, and that includes everybody from white women, black women, black men, black white men. There's every single person on the
mhm,
team because sometimes all we need is some visibility.
mhm.
That's all we need. And so I think it starts with today. It starts with the people that have the ability that make those decisions today to be intentional about the decisions that you're making, because that's really going to be what lays the course for the future.
Yeah, and then
But yeah,
I'll add on to that by saying be intentional, but also be cautious, or not cautious, be conscientious of your impact as well, because
yes,
sometimes
yeah,
our leaders, they have the best intentions, uh but the impact of the decision they made, sometimes it may have fell short, right? Because of the lack
yeah,
of understanding, resources, whatever it may have be. But own that, like, hey, I meant to do this, the impact wasn't that, so here I'm going to shift and pivot to this so that we can have a be more intentional and impactful in this way, right? So
yeah.
yes, intentionality, but also own the impact that's with that intentionality. So love it,
Yeah.
love
Can
it,
I tell
love
a
it.
story real fast? Do I have
Yeah,
time for like
go
it
ahead.
won't take long for a quick story. So when you talk about intentionality, this has to do with it's a lesson that I learned this week having to do with my son. So my son comes home. Well, he comes home. He texts me, and his messages were very disturbing. And I won't get into exactly what he said. But it was just very disturbing and enough to where I picked up my phone and called to be like, "Hey, you're okay?" Right?
Mm,
And he was just audibly upset. He was, and you could tell he'd been crying, and but he was trying to kind of talk normal. And so, but what had happened was he's like, it's just been a bad week. First, I injured myself out of nowhere, and then I get my grades. Right. And
mm,
so I was like, okay, so, what about your grades is upsetting you? He goes and tells me, he gives me, he starts giving me off his grades. He gets to the one bad one. It was like a 70, low 70s. And he says, but I turned in my work. She just hadn't graded it yet. And so now he's got this low 70. And because I don't play with schoolwork, he got a couple jobs. Keep your room clean. Okay, respect the home that I literally work my butt off to make sure that you're in, and get good grades. That's all. You don't have a lot of work to do. Like you don't have a lot of things.
Hey, get the doorbell while you at it. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I know. I think I have a delivery out of the door. I'm just like, oh crap. Yeah, but you don't have a lot of things to do, right? And so what ended up happening though was that he keeps going on, and then there was another grade he got a bad grade in. Okay. And I'm like, I had to have him remember what we did when he was in homeschool last semester. I'm like, were you able to go to school? He said no. I said, so how did you communicate with your teachers? He said, I emailed them. I said, so have you emailed your teachers? He said no. So I told him, go online, find their email addresses, you email them, you copy me on that email. You hold them accountable, because this is your life, this is your future. You are in control of your future. And I say that to say, and then like the next day, one of the teachers responded and said, she fixed his grade. He comes home happy, right? Saying he got, instead of a 72, he really had a 97. Mm-hmm. And I say all that to say that as a leader, if you are not intentional or aware of the impact, positive or negative, that you could have on those people that are under your guidance and your leadership, you could really lead to causing someone to make decisions that they can't take back. Mm-hmm. That they can't take back. We saw people jumping out of Wall Street buildings. We've seen all these crazy things, right, that happen. And it's all because somebody at the top made a decision that impacted somebody else, and without being aware of that level of impact and significance of what their actions were doing.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, to put that all in context for us. So before we, two things before we jump off. One, I want you to tell the people about Sips and Conversations with, which yours truly got to be on. So if you haven't checked it out yet, now's your time to check it out. I'm gonna have her give me the links in the show notes and to put in the show notes. But give people a brief introduction to Sips and Conversations. What was your thought behind that? Your journey as it continues to grow. Sips and Conversations.
Yeah. So Sips and Combos. Okay. The thought behind it, really and truly, okay, it's not like some glamorous story. I was listening to David Chance, who runs Social Proof Podcast.
Love him, by the way.
And he was like, love him, right? Like, he's mad dope. And he and I are close, or if not, I think we're age mates, right? Fellow Sag as well. Mad dope ass human being. And that's my new rule. You a Sag or not? But he does have some stories where, you know, he do be acting kind of funny kind of ways sometimes with people. But yeah, so one thing that he had said was that if you have a business, you should have a podcast. Why? Because that is an automatic way for you to get your voice out there, right? Get your voice out there. And so I was like, okay, I was looking at relaunching, or now I'm having to take on Nita's Cuisine by myself. And I'm like, hey, how do I kind of get my voice out there? And I'm like, you know what? My friends and I have great conversations. It was at the tail end of the pandemic. So people weren't really out like that yet. We'd started to get back out, but we'd lost touch with each other, right? And so we still were in this Instagram state, which is why I started on Instagram. And now we're looking at how do we just grow and expand. But and that's really where it started from. Like, you know, my girls and I have a great conversation. Let's do a brunch vibe. So we're gonna sip on something and we're gonna conversate. It was literally that simple. It's not like a glamorous story, but I'm so fortunate to have a circle of women in my life and that can pour into me. And that wasn't always the case, right? And so there's so many women that don't have anybody that pours into them. And so the focus is definitely, even though we got men on there now, you were the first one.
And
You
I'm
were number
honored
one.
and I'm privileged to set it off for the
Yes.
men. As a girl
Yes.
dad, that was a big deal for me. So hopefully my daughter
Yes.
checks it out one day. And I am
Yes.
a product of women who've poured into me. My co-founder is a woman who a strong Niger woman who lets me know what she thinks, she feels, and we have great conversations. So I'm blessed to have some amazing women around me.
Yeah, and so it's like, how do we continue to pour into those incredible women, right? And so
Right.
that's really the concept behind Sips and Conversations. But as time has gone on, we've been doing this now for about a year and a half. And as time has gone on, I've really become more intentional about who is my audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what message do I want to convey to them? How do I want to feed that audience? And it's all about just really self growth and transformation. So we're on Instagram on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard, 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern, and whatever that time is for everybody else. Because I don't know, and I'm not doing that.
We're not doing the math right now,
We're
but
not doing the math right now.
you figure it out. You make it there.
You make it there. And so, but really, part of, as you talked about earlier, what are my 2023 goals? That's one of them. Has been since last year. We're trying to figure out how do we get to a bigger audience and how do we really impact more women and add more value, right? It's all about the value add. So I got a couple things that I'm actually working on right now that is going to actually feed into that, but I can't talk about it just
Okay,
yet.
we'll bring you back to talk about that. How about that?
Yes.
All right. So with that being said, let's end it off like this. The projects that you can talk about, what projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Okay, where can you find me? Definitely on all social media. I'm most active on Instagram only because it's just easy. It's just easier for me. Is IG. So Nancy _ Ngwa, which is NGWA, on Instagram. I am on Facebook, but I'm not as active on Facebook. Just Nancy Ngwa on Facebook. LinkedIn, Nancy Ngwa and LinkedIn. There's the benefit of having being a Cameroonian woman is that a lot of people don't have my name. So it's just Nancy Ngwa where you can find me on YouTube. We are at Sips and Conversations podcast on YouTube and everywhere that you can listen to podcasts. Sips and Conversations podcast is on as well. So
love it. So thank you, Nancy, for coming on, blessing people with so many different gems.
Thanks for having me.
Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, if you're driving, you didn't get all that information, I'm gonna get her bio, her photo, the show notes, all that good stuff to add into the links to all the different media platforms, so you can connect with her and add it to the show notes. Nancy, any last words of wisdom for the people before we head out?
Last words of wisdom will definitely be chop life. Okay, chop life. Do not allow life to chop you.
Ooh, chop life, my friends. And so that's it with another episode of Rise Urban Nation. Reminding you to chop life. See you on the next time.
Bye.